A successful business, a cozy cafe, an apparently perfect marriage, all crumbling under the weight of careless words and the cold accent of a stranger. She speaks about her new acquaintance with a spark in her eyes, as if she comes alive around him. You try to stay calm, to suppress your irritation, but the unease grows, turning into obsession. You push yourself to extremes, trying to maintain control that keeps slipping away. What begins as minor misunderstandings escalates into open conflict, where every word is a step closer to the abyss. And when the truth finally surfaces, it proves far worse than your darkest suspicions. Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If it's your first time here, don't forget to subscribe and like this video, as every like truly inspires me. Please tell me which city and country you watch this video from. Now, let's get started. The exact moment my life began to veer off course remains vividly etched in my memory, as if it happened mere moments ago. The collapse of my marriage didn't arrive like a crashing wave. It crept in quietly, almost imperceptibly, starting with a comment that, at first, seemed completely benign. We were in the familiar warmth of our modest apartment's living room when Carmen, my wife, casually mentioned something that would unknowingly shift everything. I was 31, she was 28, and we'd been married for 4 solid years. At the time, I still harbored the belief, perhaps naively, that our bond was unshakable. Business was good. I ran a successful jewelry company with my brothers, and Carmen had thrown herself wholeheartedly into running her quaint little cafe. But that illusion of stability began to fracture with a single sentence. "There's a new customer who's been coming by lately," she said, a subtle lilt in her voice. "He's kind of fascinating." It wasn't just her words, it was the way she said them. There was a brightness to her tone, a spark I hadn't heard in a long while, the kind of excitement she usually reserved for the fictional heroes in her beloved romance books. She introduced him as Igor and mentioned he was Serbian. She described him as tall, with striking blonde hair and a presence that was hard to ignore, effortlessly charming. Though I didn't let it show at the time, I felt the first twinge of discomfort take root inside me. Trying to play it cool, I leaned back on the couch and replied, "Huh, you meet so many people at the cafe. What makes him stand out?" Her eyes lit up in a way I hadn't seen in months. "He reminds me of those characters I always talk about, mysterious but gentle. He's super well-read, too, loves the classics. He told me he came to America to find something better," she said, then paused before adding with a small smile, "And he has this accent." Though I kept my face neutral, something in me twisted uncomfortably. "Sounds like an intellectual type," I said. "Good for business, I guess." We drifted into other subjects, but that conversation stayed with me. Over the following days, Igor kept resurfacing in Carmen's stories. She came home animated, sharing details about his philosophies, his thoughts on literature, his admiration for all things American. I felt silly for being jealous. After all, she was just talking. And it wasn't like I was some emotional virtuoso myself. I've always been more logical than sentimental. And yeah, I had my controlling streak. Carmen would occasionally joke that I didn't notice when she tried a new hairstyle or created a new menu item. I knew I wasn't the most attentive husband, but it never crossed my mind that we were heading towards something irreversible. Then, 3 weeks after she first mentioned him, I decided to do something out of the ordinary. I stopped by the cafe unannounced. It was late in the afternoon, the place buzzing with life, students tapping away on laptops, quiet readers lost in their books. Carmen stood behind the counter, flour smudged on her apron, laughing at something a customer had said. I held a small bouquet of tulips, trying to surprise her with a spontaneous gesture, a moment of affection. Just as I was about to say her name, the bell above the door jingled behind me, and someone brushed past. He had broad shoulders and perfectly styled blonde hair. The moment I saw him, I felt it. that silent, primal tension men sometimes sense around each other. He glanced at me briefly, uninterested, and then locked eyes with Carmen. His whole demeanor shifted as he smiled. "Carmen," he said, his accent unmistakably Eastern European, "you left your phone in the back." He held it out to her, and her face lit up. "Oh my God, thank you, Igor. I was tearing the place apart looking for it. You're the best." The way she spoke to him, too warm, too easy, tightened something in my chest. I walked up to the counter, placing my hand on its edge. "Hey, babe," I said. She turned to me, startled. "Oh, you didn't tell me you were stopping by." Igor lingered a few feet away, an amused smile flickering at his lips. Carmen gestured between us. "Igor, this is my husband. He helps cover some of the bills for the cafe and all that. And honey, this is Igor, the one I've been telling you about." "So, you're the famous Igor," I said, looking him over. "Heard plenty." He extended his hand confidently. "Nice to meet you. Your wife is very kind. Makes the best cappuccino I've ever had." I gave a short, forced laugh as I shook his hand. There was something in the way he looked at me, steady, composed, that felt like he was measuring me, silently asking whether I posed any real challenge. I let go of his hand, and Carmen lightly touched my arm across the counter. "I'm kind of swamped right now, but thank you for the flowers." She pecked me on the cheek, brief, routine, and I got the message. I wasn't really needed here. That night, while we were chopping vegetables for dinner, I brought him up again. She brushed it off, insisting he was just a friendly regular and that I was reading too much into it. But when I told her he made me uneasy, her attitude shifted in a snap. "Don't be ridiculous," she said, a hint of irritation in her voice. "I'm allowed to talk to someone who shares my interests. Just because we like the same books doesn't mean anything shady is going on." I let it go for the moment, but something deep down refused to settle. Less than a week later, I was alone in our apartment, cycling through sports channels without really watching, waiting for Carmen to get home. She usually closed up by 7, but the clock kept ticking, and by the time it passed 9, unease had settled deep into my bones. No texts, no calls. At 9:15, the front door swung open. She stepped inside, cheeks pink from the cold, hair slightly mussed. "You're late," I said, standing up, my voice flat. She rolled her eyes and tossed her bag onto the kitchen table. "Yeah, I know. Sorry for the delay. The cafe was chaos today, and on top of that, I ended up showing Igor around a bit. He's still trying to get his bearings in the city, so we grabbed a few slices. Believe it or not, he'd never had proper New York pizza before. We wandered around, talked about books we both love, and then you left with him. Just the two of you." I let the words linger. She raised an eyebrow. "Don't even go there. I already know where your head's at, and you're completely wrong. We're just friends. From what he's hinted, there's even a chance he doesn't date women. He's never said it outright, but he's dropped enough clues to make it pretty clear. So wipe that look off your face." I exhaled hard. The "he might be gay" explanation felt a little too convenient to take at face value. "It's after 9, Carmen. A simple heads up would have been nice. Just something to let me know you'd be late." "Really?" she snapped, tugging open the fridge and grabbing a bottle of water. "You don't exactly keep me in the loop when you stay late at the jewelry store, sometimes not until midnight. But the second I hang out with a friend on a whim, you're accusing me of sneaking around? Come on, get over yourself. I'm not your property." Heat surged in my chest. "I never said you were, but don't pretend this doesn't look sketchy," I shot back. "You said he's new in town. It's one thing to bond over books. It's another to spend hours alone with him and not mention it to me. Then you walk in like you've just had the best day ever." She gave a bitter laugh, low and cutting. "Oh, sure, because heaven forbid I actually enjoy a conversation, about literature no less. Sorry if that's too nerdy for you. But I have every right to connect with someone who actually understands what I care about. At least he listens when I talk. Every time I mention a book, Your eyes glaze over, like I'm speaking in riddles. I rubbed my face with both hands. Don't turn this into some attack on me for not loving the same things. I've always been proud of you for building the cafe from scratch. My voice caught. I don't trust that guy, whether he's gay or not. There's something about him that doesn't sit right with me. Sounds like your problem, she said coldly. You don't get to pick and choose my friends, and I'm definitely not cutting off the one person here who actually sees me. Then she turned on her heel and stormed down the hall, slamming the bedroom door so hard it made the walls tremble. That night, I wore down the living room floor, pacing in circles with frustration boiling in my gut. I hated the way I sounded, possessive, paranoid, but deep down, I couldn't shake the sense that something wasn't adding up. Her whole excuse about Igor's sexuality felt more like a distraction than an explanation. A few days later, I made up my mind. I had to see for myself. I dropped by the cafe that afternoon, and there they were. Leaning in close, voices low, sharing that kind of focused energy you only see between people who have something private. Something more. Carmen's reaction was instant. She flinched when she saw me, clearly startled. She mumbled something about brainstorming for a new book club. Igor barely looked up, offered a tight, polite smile, and kept his eyes glued to his phone. That evening, after we'd unpacked our takeout, I faced her. We need to talk, I said, leaving no room for misunderstanding. Her eyes narrowed, guarded. Talk about what? Igor. She let out a sharp sigh. Are we really back to this again? Yes. We are. I saw you two today. Don't try to play it off. He's not just a reading buddy. You've been spending a ridiculous amount of time with him, just the two of you. Then you come home glowing. What exactly am I supposed to believe? Her jaw set. I expect you to believe me. I'm your wife, not your hostage. If I want to grab a coffee or talk books with someone, I can. If you've got an issue with that, it's your insecurity, not my problem. Don't fault me for finding someone who shares my passion. I'm not upset you made a friend, I snapped. I'm upset you've been hiding things. She scoffed. Hiding what exactly? I've told you from the start, he's kind, thoughtful, and genuinely interested in what I do. He respects me. He actually sees the work I pour into the cafe. You haven't acknowledged me in weeks. Meanwhile, you bury yourself in the store and barely look up. When's the last time you said something kind? Was it even on our anniversary? I bit back, voice sharp. Don't throw a list of my mistakes at me like that makes this okay. Sure, I've been focused on work, maybe I've slipped, but that doesn't give you the right— My what? She cut in, voice like a blade. To cheat? Is that what you're accusing me of now? Because I dared to talk to a guy about novels? I glared. What else am I supposed to think when I see his arm around you, or the two of you whispering like you're in your own little world? Don't insult my intelligence. She stepped closer, eyes blazing. What? Do you want me to promise I'll never speak to him again? Is that it? Are you actually trying to control who I talk to? Yes, I said, unflinching. That's exactly what I want. No more one-on-one meetups. If he drops by for coffee, fine. But private hangouts? They stop now. Those cozy evenings with pizza, slow walks through exhibits, or passionate book chats, they're history now. If you're going to start a book club, make it public, at the cafe, where others can see. No more private rendezvous. Her jaw tightened, and though I caught the glint of unshed tears, she was too furious to let them fall. You really think you can just dictate who I'm allowed to spend time with? She snapped. You're so suffocating sometimes. Isn't it enough that you partly fund the cafe I run? Now I've got to live by your standards too? My pulse quickened, but I forced my voice to stay calm. Call it whatever, manipulation, pressure, but I'm your husband. That should entitle me to honesty. So here's how it is. Either you stop these secret little meetings with him, or accept the fact that this marriage is heading toward collapse. Her expression shifted, anger fading into a colder, more detached look. She held my gaze for a few seconds, then spoke, her voice drained of feeling. "All right, you got what you wanted. I won't meet him again, not unless he walks into the cafe. That clear enough for you?" A breath left my chest, caught between cautious relief and the sting of mistrust. "That's all I asked for," I said. She walked past me like I was invisible and slammed the bedroom door shut. I remained still, breath ragged, no longer feeling like a partner, but more like some overbearing figure enforcing rules. But I kept telling myself this was necessary. Something about Igor never sat right with me. The days passed slowly. Carmen had grown distant, colder than usual, but she seemed to be sticking to our agreement. No more disappearing acts after dark. No more quiet afternoons spent among paintings. She told me those moments were behind her, said he still popped into the cafe sometimes to pick up a coffee. I nodded like it didn't bother me, but inside, my nerves were raw. One afternoon, I dropped by to leave some flyers for my jewelry business, a little cross-promotion my brothers and I had planned. I wasn't staying long, just placing a few at the counter. But Carmen wasn't there. Maya, one of the baristas, greeted me with a polite smile and told me she had stepped out. That old, uneasy knot twisted in my stomach. So I waited. And then I saw them, through the wide front window of the cafe, walking together along the sidewalk, his arm linked with hers like they were leads in a romantic movie. Worse, they were laughing. She looked alive in a way I hadn't seen in weeks. My chest squeezed tight. I moved quickly, ducking out of view. Moments later, they entered. Carmen was still smiling until her eyes landed on me. Her expression faltered, panic flashing across her face. She immediately pulled her arm from Igor's. "Hey," she said, forcing a bright, unsteady smile. Igor offered that smug little grin of his. "Good to see you again," he said, his accent curling around the words like he thought it was funny. I felt the heat rise in my skin. She had promised me, sworn it was over. And here she was, entangled with the very man she said she'd stopped seeing. I didn't speak. I simply reached out and took her arm. "We're leaving," I said, my tone like ice. She resisted, mumbling something about being in the middle of work, but I cut her off. Now. I didn't care who was watching, didn't care about the whispers starting to ripple through the cafe. Igor opened his mouth to speak, but I turned to him with a look sharp enough to cut. "Don't," I snarled, "unless you want this to get a lot worse." Maybe I looked like I'd lost it. Maybe in that moment, I had. The cafe went silent, filled with tension and wide eyes. Igor took the hint and stepped back. Carmen, cheeks blazing with fury, yanked off her apron. "Great," she spat. "Want to make a scene? Let's go." I practically dragged her to the car. The silence in that ride home was like a noose tightening. We didn't speak. She stared out the window, arms folded, and I gripped the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping me grounded. Once inside, I turned to her, my breath coming in ragged bursts. "What the hell was that?" "You promised," I said. "You said it wouldn't happen again. And now I find you, his arm around you like it's the most natural thing in the world." She threw her bag onto the couch. "Maybe I'm just tired of feeling trapped," she snapped. "I told you, we're friends. He told me he doesn't even like women. He flirts with everyone. It's just his personality." "Oh, so I'm just supposed to believe that?" I fired back. "After all the half-truths?" "Half-truths?" she shot back. "I was walking with him down the most crowded street in the city. That's not hiding. If I wanted to sneak around, don't you think I'd pick a place where you couldn't catch me?" I shook my head. "Don't spin this. You said it would stop." She jabbed a finger into my chest. "I said I wouldn't go out with him unless he came into the cafe. I never said I'd bar him from walking with me if he wanted coffee. This is still a free country, right? You don't get to control every step I take." My fists clenched at my sides. I was seconds away from putting a hole in the wall. "Stop rewriting the past. I saw how close you were. That wasn't professional. That wasn't casual." She gave a sharp, bitter laugh. "He's the one who grabbed my arm." Back then, it didn't feel like a big deal. Truly. And like I said, he might be gay. Gay men act that way with their female friends all the time. It's harmless. I rubbed my hands over my face, frustration boiling over. "I can't keep doing this. You keep feeding me the same line. So which is it? Do you think I'm a fool, or are you just lying to yourself?" Her voice trembled with rage. Unbelievable. All my life, I've craved someone who shared my love for literature and deep conversations. Now that I've finally found a friend who understands, you turn into some possessive brute. If you actually cared, you'd try reading with me sometimes instead of making me feel invisible. But no, you'd rather box me in. Maybe I needed an escape. Ever think of that? Guilt flared up, but my anger burned brighter. "Look, Carmen, I'm not perfect, but I'm not going to sit back and watch you betray me. That's the line I can't allow you to cross, so it stops now, or we're done." She stared at me, her eyes glistening. Then she gave a cold, bitter laugh, wiping away a tear. "We're already done. Didn't you notice?" She spat through clenched teeth. "You stopped being my husband a long time ago. You've turned into a tyrant. I'm finished with it." Without another word, she stormed off to the bedroom, slamming the door so hard a picture rattled on the wall. I stood there, chest heaving, torn between chasing her or leaving for good. In the end, I collapsed on the couch, drowning in a toxic brew of anger, resentment, and a betrayal I couldn't shake. In the days that followed, Carmen promised she'd distance herself from Igor. She kept repeating, "I understand. I'll set boundaries. He can still visit me at the cafe, but I won't let him walk me home anymore." Each time she said it, another piece of my trust crumbled. It was like trying to patch a sinking ship with tape. Deep down, I knew there was more to it. Her gaze always seemed distant, and every time her phone chimed, she'd snatch it up and tilt the screen away from me. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. As she slept, I carefully slid her phone from beneath her pillow, my heartbeat thundering in my ears. Right at the top of her WhatsApp was a pinned conversation labeled simply, "I." And just like that, my worst suspicion hardened into reality. I opened the thread, and the messages rolled up the screen like a slideshow of betrayal. Igor, 2:12 p.m. "Miss you, baby. Today was incredible. Does your husband suspect anything?" Carmen, 2:15 p.m. "He's losing his mind. I told him I'd stop seeing you. I hate lying, but I can't stand how controlling he's become." Igor, 2:20 p.m. "He's a fool, yeah? Let him stay clueless." The deeper I scrolled, the worse it became. These weren't just friendly conversations. They reveled in sneaky kisses, late-night meetups at the cafe once the lights were off. They took pleasure in hiding it from me. Me, the possessive tyrant who couldn't prove a thing. They mentioned making out in the back room, and Carmen's playful replies made me want to retch. This is so wrong, but you're right. It's kind of exciting. He's turned into such a villain, I don't even feel bad anymore. My grip on her phone tightened. I kept reading, horrified, as they recounted every stolen moment in graphic detail. They laughed about how easy it was to keep me fooled. She even admitted to spinning the "maybe he's gay" excuse just to throw me off. He found that hilarious. My hands trembled as I saved the entire thread to a text file and emailed it to myself. Then I scrolled through her photos. There were images of the two of them, tangled together, smiling in front of places she'd never once mentioned visiting. Clearly, she'd blocked me from seeing those on her social media. I'd had no clue. I took screenshots of each one and sent them to myself as well. When I finished, I erased the evidence from her phone and slid it back beside her without making a sound. I didn't sleep a single minute that night. My mind churned with fury at how brazen they'd been. To think she tossed out the "maybe he's gay" excuse so easily. It made me sick. I felt like the biggest fool alive. She'd been living a double life, painting me as the controlling villain while she swooned over some smooth-talking con man who knew exactly how to feed her ego. And even then, all I wanted was justice. Real. Final. If that made me the bad guy, then so be it. I'd own that label. The next morning, I confronted her. She was rummaging through the kitchen cabinets when I walked in, my face carved from stone. I didn't bother with pleasantries. "Stop," I snapped. "I know everything." She froze, blindsided. "Know what? Cut the bullshit. I saw your messages with Igor." My voice cracked under the weight of my fury. The pictures, the disgusting details, every last word. Her face went ghostly pale. For a brief moment, genuine fear shimmered in her eyes. Then she slammed the cabinet shut, her expression hardening. "You went through my phone?" Damn right I did. I pieced it all together, the lies, the covert late-night rendezvous with him, the mockery whispered behind my back. You painted me as some overbearing tyrant while you crept around in the shadows. I stepped closer, fury blazing in my eyes. "That's it. We're done." Her lips quivered, tears welling up before her anger surged forth. "You had no right to go through my things. That was a violation of trust," she snapped. My laughter came out harsh, icy. "That's your defense? No denial? No hint of regret? Only outrage that I caught you by methods you disapprove of? Spare me." Her body trembled with rage. "You want the truth?" she screamed. "Fine. Yes, I've been seeing him. But maybe if you had made any effort to be a decent husband, someone who valued my dreams, this wouldn't have happened. You smothered me with suspicions, treated me like a criminal just for having conversations. You pushed me away." My voice roared back. "Don't you dare twist this onto me. I might be flawed, but I never deserved this betrayal." My voice cracked. "I read your messages. You told him it felt wrong but thrilling." "That's on you, Carmen." She flinched, guilt flickering briefly across her face. "Believe whatever you want," she spat. "You're the reason I felt like I had to escape in the first place." My pulse thundered in my ears. "Escape? That's how you're framing this?" "I supported you. Covered half the rent for that cafe you dreamed of opening. Tried to be there for you, even when it felt like I was shouting encouragement into a void. But I guess my support couldn't compare to a stranger calling your work brilliant." She turned away, eyes glossy, tears now trickling down her cheeks. "Go ahead, lose your temper, throw your fit. But understand this. If you'd ever cared about what mattered to me, we wouldn't be here. You always prioritized your career, your money, your control over me, instead of who I truly am. I can't breathe around you." I exhaled shakily, my body quaking. "Then find air somewhere else," I said, voice low and final. "Gather your things. Leave my home. I'm filing for divorce." I didn't hesitate. That same day, I reached out to a lawyer. Carmen stormed out later, her voice cracking with sobs and curses as she left to stay with a friend. In the days that followed, I collected every shred of evidence. When I presented it to my lawyer, his expression was one of disbelief. "This is solid. Irrefutable," he said. "If you're building a case on infidelity, you're positioned to win." But the discoveries only grew darker. Digging deeper, I unearthed something more vile. Igor had a YouTube channel, not the ordinary kind, but a toxic corner of the internet where he proudly declared his expertise in seducing married women craving attention. His audience was massive, thousands of viewers hooked by his tales of conquest, spoken partly in broken English, partly in Serbian. The titles alone were revolting. Toxic Candy, How to Win a Married Woman, The Secret Game of Infidelity. In one video, he smirked into the camera, describing a married cafe owner bored of her controlling husband. Nausea churned in my stomach. Was he talking about Carmen? Then came the final, most brutal revelation. The channel led to a private adult platform where he sold exclusive content featuring blurred-out faces of cheating wives. Among those clips, I recognized her silhouette. Whether she was complicit or deceived, I couldn't be sure. But the fact that he was profiting from her betrayal ignited a fresh blaze of rage. My lawyer advised restraint. Finalize the divorce first. Then, if you want to pursue him, we can. I struggled to contain the fury simmering within me. The urge to obliterate Igor's smug expression was overwhelming. Meanwhile, Carmen continued reaching out. Her messages began apologetic, nearly pleading, before turning bitter, blaming me for driving her away. Then, one morning, she dropped a bombshell. She was pregnant. I stared at the screen, heart racing. She insisted the child was mine, arguing that we'd been intimate often enough for it to be plausible. But I knew about her encounters with Igor. The timelines blurred. Nothing made sense. Our final confrontation happened a week later, unexpectedly. I walked into the cafe and found her sorting through boxes. She looked hollowed out, eyes tired, cheeks gaunt, but the fire in her gaze hadn't diminished. "Is it true?" I asked, voice low. "Are you pregnant?" She hesitated before nodding curtly. "Yes, and it's yours. Obviously." I scoffed. "Obviously. You know I was with Igor. Don't insult me by pretending I'm oblivious." Her cheeks flushed. "It can't be his. I mean, it's complicated. But we never used protection, and with you, it was more frequent. I'm almost certain." "Almost certain?" I repeated, bitterness coating my words. "Yeah, that's really reassuring." Her gaze hardened, turning icy and unforgiving. "Once the baby's here, you can run all the tests you want. Until then, you're still my husband, and this child is as much yours as it is mine. Act accordingly." I leaned in, letting sarcasm drip from my words like venom. Step up for a kid that could be another man's? Not a chance. We'll wait for evidence. If the child's mine, I'll decide what kind of father I'll be, if at all. And if it's not? You can chase after your little book club lover, I shot back. Her body trembled, eyes welling with tears that clung to the edges of her lashes. "You're cruel," she breathed, her voice fractured. "You made me this way," I replied coldly, before turning away, her sobs echoing down the hallway like a song I refused to hear. Everything blurred after that. The divorce papers were delivered right at her cafe, loud, public, humiliating. In court, her defenses crumbled. The affair with Igor wasn't just suspicion, it was documented, proven. My lawyer presented receipts, gifts bought from our shared account, every transaction painting a vivid picture of her betrayal. I came off as the wronged husband, the victim. Sure, they painted me as controlling, but her infidelity overshadowed every accusation she could hurl. The way she looked at me, as if I was the one who ruined everything, was almost laughable. The irony? It was her deceit that shaped me into this man. By the end of it all, I kept the house, retained my share of the family jewelry business, and avoided any obligation to pay alimony. She was left with her little cafe, the old car I'd bought her, and nothing more. After the verdict, her father cornered me outside the courthouse. He stormed up, his voice low and furious. "You have a responsibility to that child." I held my ground. "No one's forcing me to sign anything without proof, so save your lectures." He snapped, calling me heartless, calling me a monster. I stood there, unmoved, just stared him down. Meanwhile, the looming question of the child's paternity hovered like a storm cloud. Fatherhood didn't spark joy, only dread. We scheduled the paternity test for after the birth. No sense in doing it sooner. Carmen unraveled. Her texts came first, vicious, furious accusations about abandoning her with no financial or emotional support. She sold the car to keep her cafe's doors open. Then came the voicemails, one after another, desperate and unhinged. She called me every name imaginable: cold, manipulative, toxic. I deleted them all without hesitation. But one person I couldn't ignore: Igor. Knowing he preyed on women like Carmen, married women, ignited something dark within me. Once the divorce was finalized, I set my plan in motion. I borrowed an SUV with tinted windows and parked outside the cafe one evening. Two old friends from my rougher days sat with me. Both owed me favors. We were waiting for Igor. He strutted out near closing, phone in hand, recording himself like the showboater he was, probably gloating to his followers about his latest conquest. His voice echoed through the street, laced with arrogance. I stepped out, my friends moving in sync beside me. "Hey, Igor," I called out. He froze mid-recording, his eyes narrowing as I advanced. "You remember me? The controlling husband?" He tried for a smug smile. "You want trouble, friend? This is how you get trouble." My friends closed in, grabbing him by the arms. He thrashed and cursed in his own language, panic flashing across his face. I stepped up, locking eyes with him. "Your little YouTube channel? Your sleazy OnlyF page? You think wrecking marriages for profit makes you some kind of man?" He scoffed, voice tight with forced bravado. "I don't ruin anything. The women come to me. Maybe they want a real man, not a bully like you." I hit him, fast and clean, my fist connecting with his jaw. He gasped, my friends slamming him against the wall. "You filmed my wife, posted her, bragged about it. Now it's time you pay for that." He tried lunging at me, but my guys yanked him back, holding him firm. Another punch, this time to the ribs, and he let out a broken cry. I snatched his phone and shattered it against the pavement. "Think this is some kind of game?" he panted. "I have lawyers, money, influence." "Bring it," I growled. "I'll hit you with an alienation of affection lawsuit. I'll report you to immigration. I have all your texts, your videos, your digital footprint. Test me." His expression shifted, his bravado evaporating. You can't do this. You think you have the right to exploit women and ruin marriages without consequences?" I snapped. "If I see even a glimpse of Carmen or me anywhere, I'll bury you legally. And trust me, I'll find you." I nodded at my friends, who released him. He slumped to the ground, cradling his ribs, eyes wide and terrified. "You think you can threaten me?" He spat, blood trickling from his lip. "Damn right I can," I said, gripping his collar and leaning in. "Take your ego, your camera, and get the hell out of our lives. Go crawl back into whatever gutter you came from." He didn't speak, just glared at me with seething hatred. But beneath the fury, I saw it. Genuine, undeniable fear. "Fine," he whispered, his voice stripped of arrogance. "It's over," I declared, taking a step back. "And if you so much as glance at Carmen again, you'll regret it far more than you already do." His gaze still blazed with anger, but the fight had drained from him. My crew and I walked away, leaving him there, phone smashed, dignity shattered, and hopefully stripped of any intention to spread his toxicity around here again. Days blurred into weeks, then stretched into months. Carmen's pregnancy continued without complications. She kept reaching out, her calls oscillating between desperate pleas and furious tirades, but I rarely answered. When I did respond, my words were brief and detached. Eventually, she gave birth to a son. Her father made another attempt to pressure me into signing the birth certificate. I told him to back off until the paternity test was completed. When the results finally arrived, they were undeniable. I wasn't the father. Not even remotely. 0%. I laughed when I saw it. A bitter, guttural sound. All the lies, all the chaos, her repeated insistence that the baby was mine. It was laughable. The truth was clear. The child belonged to Igor, or maybe some other guy she never bothered to mention. Whatever the case, it had nothing to do with me. I sent Carmen a screenshot of the results. "This is where it ends. Don't contact me again. This story has come to an end. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you liked this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you.